Welcome to Behold. Today, Craig and I are going to talk about the anxious generation. We've read a book entitled that, and we hope that we can talk about what we've learned from this book, and then we will be discussing what we can do moving forward as a society, as parents, as grandparents, how to care for our kids and young people in a digital world. Stick around. Here we go. Hey, Craig.
How you doing, Beth?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I'm kind of excited about our show. But
I am too, yes.
Before we dive in,
Okay.
I have a question for you.
All right. Ask.
I need to know about some apps on your phone.
It's kind of personal.
I know. I want to know which app you like just for fun, for
Okay.
funsies.
All right.
And which app helps you in your spiritual development. Go.
For fun, ESPN.
Okay.
I just, get score. It's baseball season.
Da-da-da.
Thank you. Appreciate
welcome.
that. I like scores, reading articles, that kind of stuff about what's going on in
Yep.
sports. I don't watch that much sports,
Okay.
and so ESPN app is very good for me
Okay.
to do that. Spiritual growth, hands down for me, it's Fighter Versus.
Okay.
I think it's put out by Desiring God.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure there's a charge to it, but it's a app that's dedicated to scripture memory,
Yes.
and it can be fun. It can be interactive. I use it especially in airports. I'll use it all the time when I'm waiting for a flight or something like that.
You use your time well.
Well,
Some of your time.
yes,
Okay.
some of the time. All right, you go.
Okay. Funzy right now is the New York Times Games app.
Is that the crossword puzzle type thing? or-
Crossword, Wordle, connections, spelling. I'm a word nerd.
Do you do Wordle?
I do Wordle. I'm not great at it.
Debbie does Wordle. I think she still does Wordle.
There's a beta game
It's a
called.
community of Wordle
It totally
people.
is.
Yeah.
So there's a game called Strands that's crossword-ish.
Okay.
That's super fun. So my two older daughters and I text each other our,
you can
our
interact?
scores
Oh, okay. All
every
right.
day.
Yeah.
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 And it's just fun. So that's and it's like my treat yourself app. I pay for it. So
Okay.
I can play all the games.
But they're not very expensive. I
It's not
wouldn't
very
think. Yeah,
expensive.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm exercising my brain.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
my excuse.
Yeah.
And then I think for spiritual growth, it would be the Lectio 365 prayer app.
I have never heard of that
There's
one.
a morning prayer and an evening prayer. I don't do the evening prayer typically.
Right.
But they do like themed weeks, or you can listen to it or you can just read it. It takes about 7 minutes. And it just is a good way to remember who's in charge of my day, who's in charge of my life.
That's really good. So what's it called?
Lectio
Yeah.
365.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I've never heard of that one before.
It's really cool. I shared it with women's retreat a couple years ago, and a couple of the women have said that's been really. I use it when I do my stretches in the morning.
Yeah,
Or
good.
It's just
Is it audible?
you can
make it
play,
audible, or you can just
or
read
you
it.
can just read it.
Yeah.
And what's cool is it is a worldwide app, so you get all these cool accents.
Okay.
So you're listening, and it's someone from Africa or the UK or America.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's fun and interesting too.
Yeah.
So
Good.
those are my
All
apps.
right. Yeah. That's a good question, actually.
Thank you.
I don't have that many apps
Yeah.
that I use. I don't use my phone like
Yeah,
that.
right.
But the ones I have, I like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, speaking of cell phones.
I know.
Huh?
That
We're
was a
so
great-
clever.
No, what a lovely segue.
Thank you. I
You're
worked
just-
really hard
You're
on
such
that
a
one.
professional, Beth.
We are going to tackle a topic that might get under some people's skin, we'll just say.
Very possible.
Got under my skin when,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
here's what we're going to do. We're going to address some kind of new research and data that's been gathered
Very new.
about how cell phones, connectedness, internet, all of that impacts the lives of especially young people.
Yes. Yes.
And we've both read this book. Do you want to hold it up?
Yep. Yep.
It's by Jonathan Haidt. That's how you say his last name, right?
Yes.
It's called The Anxious Generation.
It's just out this year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And, it's a chunky monkey,
Mhm.
but it has a lot of good information in it.
It does. Yeah.
What we do want to say is the author's not a believer.
Mhm.
He addresses things like evolution
Mhm.
and psychology, and
Mhm.
you know, we've taken it and we've kind of digested and are hoping to process with you what you can
Yeah.
glean from
Yeah.
this information.
Yeah. I found out about the book because the Truth Over Tribe covered it. But before
Yes.
that, I go up to Corbin a lot, and the president of Corbin University, who spoke here, in fact, one of the podcast shows was with him. He said, if you read 2 books, this is one of them.
Yeah.
If you're a parent or an educator,
Yeah.
or in church ministry,
Mhm.
this is The Anxious Generation is one of them, and then maybe somewhere in the future we'll look at the second one.
Yeah.
But it's very unique, and it kind of begins with a scenario. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So pretend you know the story of Rip Van Winkle.
Yes.
I forget how long he was asleep. It was 100 years or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, just imagine that you go into a deep sleep the day before the iPhone comes out
Okay.
in 2007.
Okay.
And you're in this deep sleep and you wake up in 2024. And what would be different? I mean, the physical world would be the same.
Right.
Gas price would be a tad higher.
Just a tad.
Price, food, all that kind of stuff would be higher. But everything would be the same in the world, except all of a sudden you see all people, everyone, they're carrying around these rectangle boxes
Yeah.
that are glass, and you're going, what in the world is that? Why are they? And you're thinking, are they carrying TVs with them? And every time they stop, they look down at these things, and they all walk around hunched like this.
Yeah.
People are driving looking at them. When there's no conversation, which is rare now, I mean, there's hardly any conversation. It's because people are looking at these things, and you're wondering what in the world has happened. And we were in Japan about 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and we're riding. You go by train all the time
Okay.
in Japan, and it is now considered bad manners to engage in conversation
Oh.
on the train because each person has their own device. And you go and you can see the crowded train. I mean, standing room only, and everyone has their own device. And we were at some people's house, probably 2-3 years ago, and they have teenage children, all that kind of stuff. And we're sitting there, Debbie and I are, and we're there as guests.
Yes.
And everybody, including mom and dad, have smartphones. And Beth, they're texting each other in the room. I mean, they're sitting this far apart.
With guests.
With guests. But they're sitting this far apart, and they're not Arcadian people, so just relax.
People are like, was that us? Was that us?
Right. But they're texting each other in front of us in the same room. And it wasn't about us, so we didn't feel that way. But it's just what has happened in this world kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
And that's what the book is about.
Yes.
Anxious people.
Right. And
Anxious generation.
Anxious generation. So we're going to do episode 1. We're going to give you a whole bunch of information. And episode 2, we're going to hopefully give you some practical, so what?
Right.
What do we do now? How do we handle this new information? All right. So if you think about America, if you think about the Western world, there's been a couple choices that we as parents and as a society have made. We've decided the real world is super, super dangerous. Can't let the kids out the front door.
We have to have our eyes on our children all the time,
all
Beth.
the time
Yes.
because of the crime and the violence and the drunk drivers.
Yeah.
But the risk of that has all been dropping since the 90s.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing
Yeah.
that's been happening.
Yeah.
What's the second thing?
Well, the second thing is that, it seems like there's too much of a bother to design and require age-appropriate guardrails for our kids online.
Yes.
So we left children free to wander through the virtual world where threats do abound.
Yeah.
And so on one side, we have become super protective of our
Yes.
children.
Yep.
We will not let them out of our sight in the real world.
Right.
But then in the virtual world, we say, here, there are no guardrails, there are no fences, there are no rules. In our world, you have to be 13 to agree to sign on to a contract for an
Right.
app. But an
They don't
8-year-old,
check
no, they don't
anybody.
check. You just check a box.
Yeah.
And this says IR 13.
Yeah.
And they're going to assume that you're 13. And so an 8-year-old can go into a virtual world where all of the things that can harm us
Yes.
are going on.
Yep.
And that's so it just seems strange to me because you and I, we were not raised in the smartphone era.
No.
And to have this idea that there is something in the virtual world that is destructive is difficult for us to fathom, except now we have kids
Right.
and grandkids. Did you know I had grandkids?
I do know you
You do?
have grandkids.
I don't talk about it nearly enough.
Not enough.
Let's show some pictures right now.
Okay.
No, let's not.
So let's think about that. As a parent, you're afraid if you let your child walk to school, say. It's a mile, you let them walk to school, they're going to get kidnapped.
Right.
There's going to be a predator
Guy in a van. Yeah.
and they're going to end up hurt.
Yeah, right.
We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But the truth is, the people who want to hurt children are on the internet.
Yeah.
Because there's easy pickings.
Yeah. Yeah, the days of a predator patrolling playgrounds and neighborhoods are over because that's just too much work.
Right.
They
It's
can do
super easy on the internet.
They can do it anonymously, they can do it quickly, and they can do it effectively
Right.
on the internet because there are so many children and young people who have access to the World Wide Web.
Right.
And it's just easy to be a predator. Now, let me ask you this. When you were a kid,
Yeah.
you grew up in North Highlands.
Yes.
Okay, which is it adjacent to Arcade area?
Um,
It's a ways away.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Like, just keep going down Watt Avenue and
Yeah,
you'll hit.
right. Historically speaking, and I'm an outsider, so I can say this objectively. Historically speaking, North Highlands was not the safest place to be.
No. Mm-mm.
Is that even when you were growing up?
Oh, yeah.
And so did you walk to school?
My brother and I walked 1 mile down Watt Avenue to school.
Every day?
As a first and second grader. So I was 6 and 7, and my brother would have been like 9 and 10.
So you walked a mile to school, and you walked a mile back home, and on Watt Avenue.
On Watt Avenue.
And for those of you who are not local, Watt Avenue is a major thoroughfare. It probably even was back then.
It was.
Yeah, it's a major
Yep.
artery.
Yep.
Yeah, and probably nothing was thought about that.
No, it was we had to leave the house at a certain time, to get to school on time. And then my mom was like, okay, you need to be home by. So then she would know, do I need to go start looking for them?
Right.
She gave us a little cushion because, we were kids, but we had to be home by a certain time.
Yeah.
So.
And that was in a day when there were more physical
yeah.
dangers for children.
Oh, yeah. It was like the era of serial killers.
And
let's be honest.
the era of children's pictures on milk milk cartons.
Yep.
And that's just what you did.
Yep.
And probably a lot of parents did that. It wasn't just
Yeah.
your parents.
Yep.
It's a lot of parents. For me, I was raised out in the country.
Yeah.
And so for me none of my friends lived around. Nobody lived around us.
Okay.
Basically. And so for me to hang out with my friends, they would ride their bikes to my house, or I would ride to usually I would go their way because most of my friends were in town.
Okay.
And so I'd get on my Stingray.
Yep.
And I would ride on a 2-lane highway called Hill Road.
Yeah.
And I'd go hang out with my friends. And again, my mom would tell me to be back at a certain time, and I would be back at a certain time. And I don't think they thought anything about that. Maybe they did, and they would just apply faith over fear. I don't know. But I don't know if I would do that with my son nowadays. If he was, and at that time I was probably 8 or 9,
Right.
I guess, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was nothing to do that.
Well, and then I don't remember ever having to call my mom when I got to my friend's house. If I rode my bike to my friend's house, call me when you get there.
Yeah. Yeah, if they're not hearing sirens, you must be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
Anyway.
and even as a 12 and 13-year-old, I had a paper route.
Oh, that's
And
right.
I'd sling the bag over my shoulders and
Yeah.
I would walk and throw the papers in the dark
Yeah.
by myself.
Yeah.
And I'm a girl.
Yeah.
Like, this is all the girl parents are going, not over my dead body.
Exactly.
I would
Well, would you do that
never.
with your daughter?
No.
I know. I know. So we're saying these things not because, hey, you're all bad parents, because
No.
we turned out okay. It's just things have changed.
Yes.
They just have changed. Because I would not allow my son to do some of the things that I did when I was 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah.
But things have changed, and what has changed them for the worse is the rise of the smartphone.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to talk mainly about today, is just what is happening. And a lot of the stuff we're going to get from this book, Anxious
Yeah.
Generation, but also we just want to insert sometimes
Yes.
our opinions
Yes.
and our perspective on
Right.
things, because that can matter. Because the book is mainly about Gen Z.
Yes. Because that seems to be the generation that's been heavily impacted
Yeah.
negatively
Yeah, yeah.
by, well, we'll get into it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because they're the first generation. Gen Z is what they should be about 12 to 27
Yep,
right now.
yep.
12 to 27 years old. And they are the first generation to have a portal to the virtual world in their pocket, where they could be able to have anything they wanted virtually in their pocket without any checks and balances. They're the first generation to do that. And that's amazing to me.
Yeah.
But that's how quickly things have transpired and how quickly things have gone with this. And it's just going to be interesting about that.
So we have this list. Here's what's happened.
Yeah.
It's particularly for Gen Z, particularly as they have or are going to approach puberty.
Yeah.
There's been a rapid spread of high-speed broadband in the 2000s. Like, we don't even think about that anymore. You used to have to sit at home on your computer and dial up
Yeah.
or go to the library.
That wasn't that
right?
long ago.
No, it wasn't that
Yeah.
long ago.
Yeah.
The iPhone came in 2007. Social media changed in there also, because it used to be you would just post things and now you could like them
Yeah.
or heart them or favorite them or share them or retweet them.
And it's interesting because the researchers are saying that is what really changed the virtual world, is that you can be able to respond in real time. Because how many times have you posted something, a picture of your cat or a picture of your grandchild or of your favorite restaurant and the plate in front of you? How many times have you posted that and then you go back and check how many people liked it?
Never.
I know it.
I would-
It's silly
I would
talk.
never do that, Craig.
She talks higher and higher. But I mean, and it's interesting because there's all kinds of studies on that. Now, dopamine levels,
Yeah.
they go up. The more likes you have, the more they go up, and you become addicted to that.
Right.
So you're not, you post a picture of you, and years ago, you would just post a picture of you and then you'd walk away from it. But now you return to it
Right.
to see if anybody's noticed it and liked it
Yes. Or commented.
or commented. Yeah. I mean, you're always looking at that stuff. And then what comes next is the selfie.
The selfie, the front-facing camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I hate when I accidentally open my camera app and it's front-facing. It's
Yeah.
startling.
Ooh, who's that?
Where'd that double chin come from? Anyway, so yeah, all of these things together. So think about all those things think about Rip Van Winkle waking up and there's all of this access,
and
liking.
And what kind of a world is that?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of us, especially moms and dads who are not Gen Z, which
Yeah.
most Gen Zers aren't parents just yet,
Right.
we don't know how to navigate with that. And the reality with Gen Z is it's an appendage of their life.
Yes.
I mean, it is absolutely part of their life. In a way, it's not part of our life.
Right.
And so I think that probably we as parents and adults, we need to be aware of that as we progress. And that's what we want to talk about
Right.
today.
Yep.
Is it's not just an old guy and a younger person. See what I did
Oh,
there?
that's so sweet of you.
Yeah, well, and it's not just us talking about the old days,
Right.
but things have changed, and in some cases, the smartphone has made life better.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, it has made life more difficult.
Right.
And we want to show you some of those things. We're not going to throw a bunch of stats at you because
You can find the book.
you can read the book, and there's plenty of stats, a lot of graphs, all that stuff in there. But
But think about it this way.
okay,
Gen Z,
yeah.
we've allowed them to be lab rats
Oh,
for,
he doesn't mention that's good.
right?
Yeah, you're right.
They're
You're
test
right.
subjects, they're
Yeah.
lab rats,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
hope it all works out.
yeah. Well, it's funny. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But then, do you remember when the COVID shot came out and people were really upset because it wasn't tested?
Mm-hmm.
But hey,
Yeah,
here's a cell phone with access to the internet.
yeah,
Good
yeah,
luck.
yeah. Exactly.
Sorry if I made you mad with that, but
Well, I mean, that's true. I mean, it's just there is so much out there that can be destructive. And what's been amazing is, and maybe you're this way too, is that we've had conversations, especially because of what you deal with vocationally
Yeah.
with children and parents and young people. Is we talk about this stuff, and we've always said, I'm not sure the smartphone is the best thing for my kid. I'm not sure the smartphone is the best thing for young people. Having the iWatch and all that, I'm not sure that's the best thing. And we've thought that there's a correlation between smartphones and anxiety, depression, ideation of suicide, bullying.
Right.
We thought there's a correlation to that. There's no longer a correlation to that. There is causation because the lab rats have been tested,
Right.
they've been measured, and there is a direct cause to teenage anxiety, depression, bullying, suicide. All of those things have skyrocketed.
like
since this-
165%.
Yes. Yes.
Not like a little
A smidge.
trickle. It's like
Yeah.
off the charts.
Yeah, the moment smartphones became available for young people, because again, if there's no parental watch on them, they can look at whatever they want to look at,
Right.
and they can engage with whatever they want to engage with, and there's no check system there.
Right.
And let's face it, mom and dad, you can put a filter on your smartphone, and guess who's an expert at getting around that filter? Is your kid.
So let me tell a story.
All right,
And I'm going to be a little vague because I don't want to embarrass.
is this about Debbie?
No,
Okay.
I would never.
Mhm.
So I have 3 kids.
Yep.
And, back when you would get a new cell phone, you'd keep your old one and
Mm-hmm.
throw it in the drawer or whatever.
Yeah.
And one of my kids wanted to make videos. So we gave them the old cell phone that was disconnected from
Everything.
everything, or so we thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was still connected to our home Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
And this person in my house, I'm being super vague, so there's no, you don't know who it is.
We'll call her Bruce.
Brucette.
Brucette, yeah.
It wasn't Bruce. They were able to, as a child, make their own YouTube account. But in order to make your own YouTube account, you have to have an email address. So here we had innocently given
Right.
what we thought was a camera to
Uh-huh.
a child, and they were able to get on the internet, make their own email address.
How old?
I don't want to say,
Oh, okay. All right.
but young,
Yeah. Okay. Preteen.
preteen.
Okay.
And then, there were other times where it was like, what do you mean you have a Twitter?
Oh, wow.
What do you mean you,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was even before they had their own cell phones. This was just internet access via a laptop or whatever. So don't think that, I have all these protections and
Yeah.
digital natives. Kids
Yeah.
are digital natives. That means
It's their language.
yeah.
They speak it, and yeah, it's amazing what they can do. And
Yep.
if they can't do it, one of their friends can.
Yep.
And so once again, moms and dads, this is not Beth and me trying to be fear mongers. It's just we need to be wise
Yep.
on something that we're just not. It's not natural for us to be
Yeah.
wise in, and because let's face it, technology has shaped the way that your child thinks, and it's shaped their entire day.
Yeah.
Everything has changed with the smartphone, especially if your child has a smartphone.
Yes.
It has completely changed. Like you mentioned earlier, the next episode that we drop is going to be hopefully some prescriptive stuff.
Right.
This is just a diagnostic episode just to make us aware of what's happening.
Right. So the book basically is like, there's been all these changes in technology and that affects
Right.
kids.
Mhm.
And it's a disaster. There's been this disastrous shift towards overprotecting our kids and restricting their freedom, like
Yeah.
hyper
Yeah.
restricting their freedom
To
in
the
the real
point where it
world.
influences their playtime.
Yes.
Even those of us parents that really want our kids to play, we have to hover. We have to supervise even their playtime because something bad might happen.
Right.
They could, there might be a bully in the playground, or they might fall out of the tree and break their arm, and so we put up nets around our trampolines
Right.
and all,
Right. Right.
which
Right.
is fine. But I mean, we do everything we can to protect our children. For example, growing up, I don't know, you might be not be old enough, but did you guys have seat belts in your cars growing
Just
up?
lap belts, not
Lap
the shoulder
belts?
belts.
See, I was raised. We didn't have seat belts
Yeah.
growing up, and so we sat in the back of the car. We sat in the back of the truck, and no seat belts, nothing. Well, guess what? Studies showed that a lot of children were harmed and killed
Yeah.
because of no seat belts, and then eventually car seats.
Right.
And so, what does the government do? The government oversees seat belts and car seats, which I'm grateful for.
Right.
That saved thousands of lives
Yep.
of children. And then on top of that, smoking. I
Oh my
mean-
gosh. I remember cigarette vending machines
Oh yeah, yeah.
where I could have bought cigarettes
And smoking
at any
sections.
age. And
Yeah.
smoking sections,
Yeah.
yes.
And people talk about. I can remember flying on planes and there'd be a smoking section, usually in the back of the plane.
Yeah.
But it never stayed in the back of the
No,
plane,
no,
and that was just the way it was.
Yeah.
But now there are no vending machines.
no.
And every pack of cigarettes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm told, I haven't looked at one, but lately anyway, but has something from the Surgeon General.
Warning.
Yeah. And with the internet and with smartphones, if you say you're 13, you can sign up for anything you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty scary
Yeah,
when you
it
think
is.
about it.
Yeah.
Let's see. We've talked. So the author uses the terms. We've gone from play-based childhood to phone-based childhood.
Yes.
So think about like if you're probably over 40, you can remember going outside and playing with your friends
Yeah.
in the front yard or throwing the ball down the street.
Playing in
or
the street.
Playing in the street.
Yeah, yeah.
You can remember maybe walking to and from school or walking to and from a friend's house or going to the park with the friends, right? A play-based childhood, unstructured play. I'm not saying you went to baseball practice or you went to dance or you
Yeah.
went to...
You had to make your own rules.
You made your own rules. You
Yeah.
made your own fun.
Yeah.
You had to work out your issues with whoever you were playing with.
Yeah.
And now we have a phone-based childhood where kids are staying indoors. Because
Yeah.
remember, it's super unsafe to send our kids outside.
Right, yeah.
So they're staying indoors. They're on a device of some kind, an iPad, a
Yeah.
phone, a laptop. We know schools give kids Chromebooks now. So there's this phone-based childhood that has produced some trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about those four things?
Well, yeah. I mean, here's the thing that, and we've alluded to it already on this episode, but with the rise of smartphone usage by young people, issues of anxiety, depression, self-harm has absolutely decimated an entire generation. It has just skyrocketed. What's interesting, and this would be interesting for you because it's mainly with girls.
yeah.
Where the cyberbullying, the anxiety, the depression is mainly with girls. And I wouldn't have made that connection, but in just reading the book, for example, and then talking with you about your girls,
Right.
I get that. I mean,
Well,
yeah.
there's think about a boy bully.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to beat you up.
Yeah.
He's going to try and physically dominate you.
And if you fight back, he'll probably be your best friend.
Right.
That's how boys operate. You
Right.
get in a schoolyard fight and you hate each other, you duke it out, you draw some blood.
And then it's over.
Then it's over and you found a best friend.
Right.
That's almost always it happens.
So
But,
think about a girl bully.
Yeah.
And a girl bully is going to say, "You're ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Are you really wearing that? Why do you wear your hair like that? Don't you know everyone hates
I
you?
apologize for that already, Beth. I mean, come on. Man, get over it.
So, because girls tend to be more social
Yeah.
and more relational,
Yeah.
these social implications are more damaging.
Yeah.
Right?
In
And social media,
comparing, yeah.
right? Social media just like amplifies all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You get, and the harassment. Like, you talk to any young woman, and you're going to hear about her being sent messages or images or being bothered online,
Yeah.
whether it's by another woman or by a man, a grown up. So, yes, girls, that's how girls kind of wear it.
Yeah.
They're more vulnerable. They're more vulnerable to that kind of social bullying,
Right.
and they're more vulnerable to predators and harassment
Yeah.
online.
And with boys, it's not so much that
Right.
that causes the anxiety, the depression, the self-harm. It's porn.
Yeah.
I mean, true confession, if I'm with my buds and we're riding our bikes in downtown Boise, and we really wanted to look at porn, we had to go to Ray's Liquor
Okay.
and have to go in the front door because the magazines were always in the back.
Yeah.
And we would have to go there. If we really wanted to look at porn, we'd have to hunt it out.
Yeah.
Because of smartphones, porn hunts you.
Yeah.
And this is what happens to so many young men. And I know that porn affects women as well, because that rate is climbing as well, with women being addicted to porn. But that is where boys are primary, and violence, violent games, pictures of violence, of shootings, that kind of stuff. That gets in boys' minds in a different way than it does girls.
Yeah.
And once again, a boy can go on any kind of porn site, and all you have to do is say, "Yeah, I'm 18. I'm 18," and check a box,
Right.
and you're good to go. You've got the whole world before you,
Right.
and you've killed 5 hours of screen time, and you're addicted for life,
Right.
because of that.
Right.
And that is tragic. And once again, we've always thought there's a correlation between smartphone usage and all of these mental health issues. I call them soul sickness. But now we know that it's a causation thing. It's a real thing that's happening in boys and girls, and their minds are so moldable at that time, at that age. It's
Something that stuck with me from the book was he was talking about like when kids are growing, especially in puberty, their minds are like wet cement, but not the kind that you can scribble in and then it just melts back, but the kind where, you write your name or you put your footprint and it stays.
Yeah.
So here we are allowing kids full access where it's going to stay.
And we'll talk about this next episode, but a lot of the reason why we allow our kids to have smartphones is because all their friends do.
Right.
And that there's a problem in parenting there, but there's also an issue of that we need to be wise about these things.
Yeah.
And so I know that this has probably been a downer episode, but it's important.
Yes.
And if you want to get the data on this, then go ahead and look up the book, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And
He's been on a lot of podcasts too, so you could probably find an interview with him or something.
Yeah, he's written a couple of other books that are very interesting too. It's interesting. I'm every time I read him his books, I'm surprised he's not a Christian.
Yeah.
But
yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but they're very informational, and we recommend that you do this. And so why should we be concerned about our children like this way?
Okay.
And this is the behold part.
Yes.
Proverbs 22.
Okay.
Verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go. And that operative word there is train. Why do we need to train children? Because they need to be trained.
They're children.
They're children. And as moms and dads, everything we do is with the intent to train our children. And so during those wet cement ages, we have got to be absolutely and absolutely diligent in making sure that they're being trained in those areas that etch in their life into adulthood. And that's very, very vital, because a little bit later on in Proverbs 22, verse 15, folly is bound up in the heart of a child. And so foolishness is bound up. That's true. That is so true. If you put broccoli and Pop-Tarts next, which would your child choose every time? They'd choose Pop-Tarts.
And sometimes grown-ups too.
And sometimes, well, I don't know for sure, but maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. But our children are born needing to be trained because, and not in a derogatory way,
No.
the insulting, they're fools. They're foolish. They make foolish decisions.
They're immature.
They're immature. And so it's vital that we as parents train them in those things. And hopefully next episode we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for joining us. We know this was not good news.
No.
But it's news that we felt that we needed to share and talk about. And so make sure you stick around for next week's episode when we talk more about hope for the future and what we can do to care for our kids and young people. Until next time, subscribe, share, like, comment, do all the things to get our podcast out there so more people can listen. See you next time.
Bye.